Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is beyond the effect of emotion. When we get emotional, we can get swept away, we can lose our sense of presence, and there's a big distortion that occurs since we're experiencing our lives through the lens of that emotion. And so today we're going to talk about how we can cultivate presence even in the throes of an emotional experience. But before we get started, let's just take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you joining us this morning. And welcome to everybody else who's with us. Today we're talking about beyond the effect of emotion. So when we talk about the emotion of rage, for instance, we talk about being blinded by rage. And I think that we can recognize that when we are in different emotional states, not just rage, what often happens is that we become consumed by those emotions, that we become blinded in a way, or certainly conditioned by the emotion that we're experiencing. So if we're sad, the lens that we see the world through is sad, and we tend to see more and more things that are sad. If we're frustrated, we find all kinds of things to be frustrated about. If we're angry, we find all kinds of things to be angry about. And there are matrices there of emotion where one emotion kind of feeds another, and it just becomes this royal that it makes it like seeing through a cloud, and it obscures our sense of presence, actually. So how can we befriend these emotions, allow them to be productive, experience the energy of them, and allow them to process through, while also not being at the effect of it? So this gets to our greater nature, in that it calls us to be both observer and observed. So the observed is the part of us that is experiencing the emotion. the anger, the frustration, the outrage, the overwhelm, whatever that experience is, that's the observed. That's the part of us that is the experiencer. And the observer is the part of us that is aware that we're having that experience. And as the observer, recognizing that we're having an experience, that observer then can open us to a greater awareness around the emotion, because oftentimes when we get emotional, we end up with a cascade of emotions, oftentimes including judgment, right? Judging ourselves for feeling a certain way, and then that creates a greater compounding of this emotional energy. As the observer, rather than casting judgment or passing judgment on ourselves, what we can do is introduce curiosity. So even in the midst, and I think that this takes the awareness that we are not our emotions. We are, when we say I'm sad, I am angry, but it's not who we are. It's I am feeling sadness. I am experiencing sadness. I am experiencing anger. And even that distinction, that linguistic distinction to say, it's not who I am, it's what I am experiencing, that gives us that beginning of the observer or the witness. It gives us the beginning of recognition that we are not our experience. We are able to be the experiencer. And I I operate from the vantage point that if it's coming up, it's coming up to heal. So if we're experiencing all kinds of emotion, oftentimes those emotions are outsized for the circumstance that precipitated them. So something silly can happen and we can fly off the handle and get all kinds of upset and angry and reactive. And I don't know if you've had the experience, but I certainly have, where on occasion something will happen and I react in such an extreme way that it's very apparent to me that my reaction is way out of proportion to whatever the trigger was, whatever the circumstance was, whatever the input was. I had a friend told me an interesting story the other day about um calling a friend of theirs, and when they spoke to them, the friend was just crying and 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 distraught, and my friend said to them, what's going on, what's happening, why are you so, what's upset you so? And this person was deeply upset over the death of her favorite character in a TV show. And my friend said, I just couldn't get it, because, here I'm contending with all these things in real life that are really pressing and poignant and painful, and wanting to share, what was happening, and here this person is absolutely bereft over a character in a TV show. And I said, well, that person, it was really an opportunity for them to be grieving the loss of some of their loved ones. And my friend said, wow, I didn't think of that. But think, we have outsized emotion typically because of something else that's accelerating that moment, accelerating the intensity of that moment. And so when I say if it's coming up to heal, that also works in the context of emotion, particularly outsized emotion, where it's a way for our body and being to communicate to us that there's something calling for attention, something calling for attention. So cultivating the witness. I have had what I'll call the grace, moments of grace, where even in the midst of a deep, deep upset, I could be present to the fact that I was having a deep upset. Like there was the observer, there was the self that kind of is beyond that experience. There's the part that is, we could even call it 3D, 5D, or 2D, 3D, or whatever, that there are different dimensions of experience and awareness. And this cultivation of the witness, what I was saying is I've had moments where I was graced with the opportunity to bear witness, even in the midst of a deep upset, to say, I'm really upset. I'm feeling, and this is again, that distinction makes all the difference, really. I'm feeling really upset, and it's okay. Like I get that I'm experiencing this experience, and the part of me that's observing it is fine. The part of me that's experiencing it is experiencing and is also fine. So I think that the understanding, and I don't think it's how we're conditioned, but I think that the understanding that I am not my emotion, I am not my thoughts, I am not by my behavior, gives us freedom to observe that behavior, to observe those thoughts, to observe those emotions, and often gives us the ability then to transform them or to make different choices. Because so many of our choices, as we recognize the power of these different states of being, so many of our choices are actually not choices. They're kind of just habitual or reactions. They're habits or reactions in so many cases. And as we have the opportunity to cultivate the observer, as we take the opportunity to cultivate the observer, we cultivate the ability and freedom, or the ability to distance ourselves enough to have greater clarity, and then to be able to choose, to bring ourselves to a space of choice from this place of somewhat detached observer. Doesn't mean we don't feel the feelings. We get to feel the feelings and to notice them at the same time. One of the reasons for this conversation is that somebody very close to me recently just had an experience where they were in a rage, absolutely in a rage. And I remember experiences of my own where I was in a rage and making determinations and declarations about my life from that state. Well, I'm here to say that's not the greatest, most resourceful place to be making life decisions from. And I know that's not news, right? So if that's the case, and even from a place of depression and overwhelm, also not the greatest state from which to be making life decisions. To be able to come into this witness, to be able to come into this place of observer, actually gives us much greater freedom. It means that runaway train that's barreling into a tunnel, it means that we can sort of be an observer rather than riding on the train. You know, we can sort of hover above and sort of see it and recognize, okay, that's playing itself out. And I can remove myself from it enough to not make decisions that are going to come back and bite me in a big way. So being in the world but not of the world, maybe that may be part of this. To be able to experience the experience and know that that's not who we are. We are the experiencer, not the experience. And this shift of mind is actually, while simple, quite profound, because it it's a shift of being, it's a shift from being at the effect of being battered around by experience and reaction and emotion to greater presence, greater awareness, greater freedom. That's what it's really about. It's really about freedom, so that we can recognize what we're feeling, we can own what we're feeling without having to be it. I don't have to be sad. I don't have to be angry. I don't have to be overwhelmed. I can experience it without it being who I am. When we, our language really supports kind of losing this sense of observer self, losing this sense of a greater self that is the haver of experience, right? Rather than being the experience. So if we think about how we express our emotions, at least in English, we say, I am in love. I am in love. I am angry. I am hungry. I am thirsty. Instead of I feel thirsty. I feel hungry. I feel like I'm in love. Check in as with yourself, just using these words, using the words I feel rather than I am. There's an I that is beyond the experience, that encompasses all the experience, which makes me think of how in moving toward greater awareness and wholeness and enlightenment, we talk about letting go and surrender. And I just being a Westerner, Rosalind says, instead of I am, replace it with I am experiencing. Exactly, Rosalind. I am experiencing. I am feeling. I am experiencing rather than I am. It's a massive shift. So simple, but so massive. It's like the difference between I have to do something and I get to do something. But it's even bigger than that. You know, if we feel into I get to do this, that, and the other thing rather than I have to do this and I have to do that, I get to do this. It's a very different feeling. I am feels very different than I am experiencing. So I was talking about how we're told let go, just let it go, just let it go. Well, we're Westerners, and as Westerners, letting go is in our forte typically, right? So I came up with, rather than letting go, expand to include. So I can expand to include my experience of anger, of joy, of love, of frustration, of gratitude. And then the I that I am is all of it. The I that I am is the experiencer. And I wonder, how does it feel? Does it feel differently to you as you expand to include? It's going the same place as letting it go, you know, because letting it go and letting it go and letting it go is becoming nothing to become everything. We could also become everything to become nothing, right? When we become everything, I think that that's actually more the case, because the everything includes the nothing, I think. So there's an inclusivity to allow ourselves to be the experiencer. And in that way, we don't have to be so attached to the experience. You know, I'm fat, I'm thin. No, no, I have a thought that I'm fat or I'm thin, but it's not who I am. My body is whatever. And that's a judgment too, right? I'm smart, I'm dull. You know what? It's not, those are not I ams, right? Those are thoughts, judgments, beliefs, but we're not our beliefs because we can change our beliefs. And there is an essence that we are. And that essence probably goes beyond the ability of words to describe, right? That essence that each of us is uniquely in our physical expression. So to be able to gain the distance, gain the perspective on our emotions, to recognize that they're not who we are. I'm not emotional. I experience a lot of emotion. Does that, there's a difference. I'm experiencing hunger right now. I feel hungry. Give it a try and then notice if it gives you more space to breathe, if it gives you more space to be able to choose, if it gives you more freedom. Because that's the point, to me anyway, is that like ultimate awakening to in the way it's calculated or put together in my head at this moment is that and heart is it's freedom, true freedom. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And I just want to again and again and again express my gratitude for the opportunity to share these morning musings on what it is to be human. So until next time, so much love to you.